This is Nerd News for Wednesday, August 29th, 2018. There is nothing more nerdy than independent film, so it's time for an independent spotlight. What do you get when you cross the Neon Demon, La La Land, and Videodrome? You get the independent movie The Guiding Light. No, not the painfully awful daytime soap opera your grandma used to watch. This is a horror movie that's also a musical, but with visual subtext and surrealism that just might make you ask, wait, did I drop acid and just not remember dropping acid? For more info on this independent movie, check out the link in the show notes. And if you want your project featured in our independent spotlight, post a link in the comments. So another study was released trying to say that no amount of drinking is risk-free. So let's unpack this so-called study. First off, there is no peer review that I could find, so this study stands alone. Second, this seems to include a majority of very heavy drinkers. For the study, hundreds of researchers collaborated to lump together 3,992 estimates for relative risks of alcohol drinking. With hundreds of researchers, you have to question what qualified them for this study. With the data pool being less than 4,000, you wonder why that number is so low, especially with hundreds of so-called researchers. Lastly, with hundreds of researchers, almost 4,000 in the data pool, they could only come up with estimates. This so-called study is nothing more than clickbait as far as I'm concerned. It has more holes in it than a 7th grade science paper on the negative impact of weekend homework. So Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth both walked out on Star Trek IV. Can Star Trek survive without them? Kevin Smith doesn't think so and went off about it on a recent episode of his show Fat Man on Batman. I think Star Trek really has no choice. They can't recast. Chris Pine is fantastic. It was chancy bringing another Kirk into the world. They found the one guy who could pull it off where it doesn't sound like an impression. Kevin Smith goes on to offer his services as mediator. Do you think Star Trek IV could happen without Chris Pine? By now you've probably heard about that Big Trouble in Little China remake starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? Well, don't call it a remake because they are now calling it a sequel. We're going to continue the universe of Big Trouble in Little China. Everything that happened in the original exists and is standalone. And I think there's only one person that could ever play Jack Burton, so Dwayne would never try and play that character. Is the reboot trend turning into an extremely belated sequel trend? My personal least favorite Doctor is joining Star Wars Episode 9. That's right, Matt Smith, the Doctor who hates bacon, has what's being called a key role in the final installment of the current Star Wars trilogy. Variety cites anonymous sources that seem not to say if he is Resistance or First Order. Matt Smith joins Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, John Boyega, Kerry Russell, and Kelly Marie Tran, now known as Lon Marie Tran. Star Wars Episode 9 comes to theaters December 20th, 2019. Would you rather have Matt Smith be a hero or a villain? Nerd News now posts every weekday at 5 a.m. Pacific.